And so we specifically cater to working professionals. We offer graduate and postgraduate courses with an emphasis on practical skill development and, of course, building confidence so that when our students do go out into the real world, they are equipped with skills to navigate through the very competitive professional environments they're in. We are proud to say that women make up a very large part of our student base, and they have played a very integral role in helping us to grow as an organization, not just as an educational institution, but one that strives for social change and positive social change at that. So that's why it was only natural that this year, on the occasion of International Women's Day, we resolved to play our part towards contributing and supporting women in active professional setups, leadership, and decision making. Today's topic is how to start a small scale business. It's a very salient topic for any endeavor that wants to support women reach their full potential. So why is it so important? So according to various reports, including many reports of the United Nations, UNICEF, and various banks, the statistical figures show that women entrepreneurs have grown considerably in number. But this only tells us a small part of the story. Women-owned businesses are still in a minority, and women face major hurdles in having their entrepreneurships set up. And what are these hurdles? It could be social expectations, it could be accessing funding. There is a question of balancing business and family life, or simply to just be taken seriously. So, as you all must have understood, that these are challenges which are considerably different from the male counterparts who might be setting up their own businesses. So we are hopeful that through this, our webinar series that has continued through the holy month of Ramadan this year, we have contributed to some extent in helping and supporting women, especially those who want to set up, or aspire to set up their own businesses. So today's webinar, how to start a small scale business, is going to empower and inspire all those women who want to have their own businesses, but also want to learn how to navigate through the very competitive business environments currently. Our speaker today is Ms. Marina Van Zyl, who, having played a leading role in executive development over a decade now, has an exceptional ability to design, develop, and implement powerful and insightful executive development programs and courses for global business leaders. Her expertise comes from having worked for diverse leadership development organizations in many countries, including South Africa, Tanzania, and now the United Arab Emirates. Her ability to deal with multinational organizations and individuals across different levels of leadership has resulted in her co-founding her own organization, Platform for Connected Leadership. As a business owner, she currently holds the position of CEO in the organization, and she spearheads the vision and drives business development with passion, drive, and clear direction. So, Ms. Marina, I invite you now to take over the webinar, and I'm sure that all our audience is looking forward to listening to you.
Thank you so very much, Supriya, again for that great introduction. I always do, like I've mentioned before, I always have to remind myself that some of those stuff, you know, they're all actually true, and I have actually done most of those things. Okay, ladies, it is great to have all of you back online with us today. I am quickly getting my slides ready for us to share. so we can start with this. So welcome again back to Bringing Women Back to Work, myself and LUBM to take you through this session today. So I'm going to pick up a little bit where I was yesterday. Just again, a quickly introduction from my side. CEO of Platform for Connected Leadership, registered here in Dubai. I'm a lawyer by education, but I have found that leadership development and training is actually my passion in life. So I've rather gone into that direction. I've been doing this for quite a couple of years now. And then I am also a certified practitioner in 5 Lens, which is on the human behavioral side of psychology and interacting with people. So just a quick reminder again, in terms of how we are interacting today. So if at any point in time you want to send a message on the chat to me, you're more than welcome to use the chat function. You will find quite a couple of reactions that you can find on your screen, whether it's emojis, asking me to slow down, or maybe go back to a previous slide. Sorry about that. It seems that my slides are being kicked out. Okay. And then also, if you have a question, to just raise your hand for me. We will pick up where we were yesterday. Yesterday, we covered just a couple of the informations around the idea, the brand, the platform, and then what I call the balancing act. So what we're going to do today is we're going to dive a little bit more into the detail. We're going to see, some of the actual things that goes into these topics. So I'll expand a little bit more on what it was that we started off with yesterday. So we start off with the idea, the concept that we have, this plan that we have, this business that we want to start. Where do we start with it? What is our idea and how do we go forward with it? So I started you off yesterday by saying that we need to look at the key factor, which is your why. If we look at the golden triangle, we start on the outside by saying, what is it that we do? Because we all know what it is that we want to do. How are we going to do it? What is our unique selling proposition? What is the value that you're going to be bringing to customers? But most importantly, your why. Why do you exist? What is your purpose? What is your cause behind all of this? And mostly, what is the passion that drives you to want to start this organization? So what I did yesterday, I ran a little bit of a poll and we got some feedback in. This is just a reminder of what we got yesterday from some of the participants, their why it is that they want to do this. And I do want to sort of encourage you to go and think about, I understand that there's a lot of things here where it's fulfilling your dreams and your self-realization and having that self-potential that you want to unlock. But one of the things that I want to get you to start to think about is the why of the company. Why is it that you want this company to exist? I mentioned yesterday that for Platform for Connected Leadership, PCL for short, our why is because we believe that everyone has greatness in them. And with the right motivation and inspiration, that greatness can be achieved and people can start to supersede past their usual performances. So that's our why, the why that we use as part of our selling point, the why that we that we use to get people to understand why we do it, what it is that we do. Why do we get up early in the mornings and work till late at night? Why is it that we establish this organization? So take some time, go and think about it, try and establish for yourself, what is your why that you want to be, I almost want to say the tagline of the organization. We talked a little bit about generating the name yesterday. So I gave a couple of examples, sites that you can go and look at, brainstorming sessions that you can have. So for today, we're diving a little bit more into the detail. We're going to look at a couple of practical areas to touch on, maybe even cover some of those questions that you might have of where do I start with this? Now, just to make a quick reference, everything that I am discussing today, all of the sites that I've used, in the past as well, out of my own experience, I have provided an additional slide. I've updated it a little bit to add a couple of the new stuff from today for you. So you can always go and play around in those sites yourself as well. So one of the sites that I've given you is to help you, come up with that inspiration for the name. So this particular site gives you 3 areas to look at. And these are also 3 areas that can help you, not just from a searching for it on the website site, but also look at, what is it that goes into this? How do I actually generate the name? How do people come up with these things? Where do we find some inspiration? So there's the option, of course, where you can do a name search. So what it does is it works with AI. So you type in certain keywords. We used the example of the fashion industry yesterday. So, if you type in fashion and maybe your own name or what it is that you have in mind, then you can actually generate a unique name for yourself, and it's not something that you have to pay for. It's a free site. There are the options of where you get ideas from other people. So they refer to it as starting a contest. So you give some information onto this site. People from across the world come to you with ideas for names, and it creates a little bit of a competition. That way you get insight from a whole host of people that you might not have had access to start with if you were just speaking to friends and family. And then there is always the name option of buying a name. So that becomes a bit of a separate thing. They have the ready-made name behind it. They have options for the branding behind it. So where you can actually go and buy your entire concept from an organization that pre-designed and developed it. So these are some of the options that you can look at when it comes to generating a fantastic name for your company. We also spoke about the plan yesterday. So when we talked about the plan, I gave you a couple of ideas of what goes into the plan. But for today, we're actually going to look at what does a sample look like? What is the table of contents? Where do you start when you start to look at what goes into your business plan? So from the slide here, you should be able to see that based on the table of contents, the usual, you have your executive summary, the overview of the company, what is it that you're going to be doing, where we categorize it between problem and solution, or I'm one of those people, I don't like the word problem, I prefer to use the word challenge. So challenge versus solution, what is the challenge that you see in the market or the gap that you see in the market, and what is your proposed solution behind this? Now, documents like this is something that you use as part of your submission when you do your license registration. So it's a good thing to have it. And it's always good to have it as part of your business strategy. You can always go and refer back to it. When you have times where you're struggling a little bit with your planning and your thinking, go back to the original business plan and see what was it that you had in mind when you started with this. So we then have the target market. Who's your market? What's the market size? Your competition, what other entities are there in the market, people that you would potentially be competing with. And a lot of the times your competition might not be very obvious. We work with a retail company here in the UAE, and we constantly have to remind them that your competition is not just another retail store, another grocery store. The retail industry has expanded, especially in food and beverage, so far that restaurants and grocery stores are now competing with one another because they have similar yet completely different solutions that might fit other people's needs. So think about that competition. Think about, where might you find people that you're competing with? What is the product or the service? What exactly are you offering? So this is not, the company or the idea, but the tangible product that's being delivered to your customer. Your marketing plan, how do you plan to market? We cover that a little bit as well. Maybe a couple of examples of your marketing, maybe pre-design a couple of the flyers and the posts that you want to use to showcase, to say this is sort of your marketing plan. Along with that, we talked about it yesterday where we said put certain deadlines down for yourself, timelines, milestones. What is it that you want to reach in 3, 6, and 12 months, and how do you want to break that down? And then also your own key performances. Where do you measure performance within your company? Is it just purely, I've generated leads, I've made some money, all of those type of performance indicators to tell yourself, what have I measured and how have I measured it? And how did I reach those targets that I wanted to reach? And then of course, the financial forecasting, the planning of the company, how much are you putting in, how much do you need to spend to keep the company operational as you try and get in sales, What is your sales plan? How are you going to, get the money in to cover the capitalization of the organization, which calls for the financing. How are you financing the company? What is the sources of financing? And how are you going to use the financing of the organization that you're putting in as part of your startup capital? So just a couple of ideas there, maybe just use the table of content as a starting point, as a reference on how you do this. This entire template with all of the additional pages are available on the links that I've given you. So it might give you a bit of a head start if you're struggling to figure out, where do I start with my business plan? As part of the business plan, I'm going to expand a little bit now. So we talk about the customers. How do we do our research? What are some of the things that we need to look at when we look at the customer research? We need to look at the behavior of the organization. Where do they buy? When do they buy? And how much do they buy? What is their demographic and their lifestyle? So what are the type of people that you're dealing with? Are you dealing with younger individuals that have, some minimal income? Are you dealing with a bit more of an older target, a bit more established in their career, so they're more likely to spend money on this type of product? And what is their lifestyle? Is it a single individual like myself? One of my favorite stores is Steve Madden. They love me there. They know that when I walk in and it's on a Saturday, they can guarantee I'm walking out with more than one pair of shoes. But that might not be everybody's lifestyle. So what is the type of lifestyle that you're dealing with? What is their motivation for buying your products? Why do they want to buy your products? And why do they buy, from a specific brand as opposed to another one? Is it because there's a brand bias? Is it because there's brand loyalty? So what is the motivation that drives your customers to want to buy this particular product? Then, of course, there is the attitude of your customers. It is, what are their opinions to the brand? What do they think about it? You have a lot of debates in the market about specific brands. One of, I think, if we talk about a technology debate the most, is Apple versus Samsung. Why do people buy Apple, or why do they not? Is there a specific reason, or is it just because they don't like the brand? They don't like the product, or they don't like the apps? So what is the attitude of your customers? Why do they think about one thing versus the other one? And then, of course, there's the aspirational customer. So what is the potential, interaction that they can have with your brand? What is that inspiration that you can create to maybe sway someone to say, okay, I'm going to try this product, and if I like it, I'll continue buying it. So look at a couple of the aspects when you go into doing your marketing research. Try and put yourself in the shoes of the customer to say, if I was going to buy my own product, why would I do it? What would I want from it? What would I be willing to spend on it? A lot of the times when you're dealing with your own product, you would maybe say, yeah, sure, I will, because I know how great my product is, I don't mind paying the price that I want to charge for it. But other people might not feel the same way. So try and figure out what it is that the customer would want, even if it is just a rudimentary idea that you have, some desktop research, or even create some surveys, send it out to people, get some first-hand research from customers, ask people what they want and what they think. So make sure that you have that aspect of your research well planned out. Because at the end of the day, a very good business strategy is to make sure that you have very happy customers. Then one of the biggest challenges that we face, and this is not just as women entrepreneurs or anyone for that matter starting a business, it is one of those challenges where we start to ask ourselves, how am I going to fund this? Where am I going to get the money from? And we have two types of money, financials for financing a business. We look at debt versus equity. So debt is where you go and you loan the money. You either go to a bank, you go to a family member, you go to a friend, and you loan the money, and it becomes a debt. It's money that you have to pay back, whether the company makes money or not. That money has to be given back. Or there's equity. It's money that you put in from your own pocket. Maybe you have a business partner that's willing to finance the company with you. Somebody that is willing to say, okay, I'm going to put this money into the business. If the company doesn't make money, I am willing to say this money is not going to come back to me. So that is the two types of options that you need to look at. And also look at, the pros and cons. I've given a couple of here on the screen to say, what are the pros and cons of going into debt finance, and what is the pros and cons of equity finance? So think very carefully when you make this decision. A lot of companies opt to go with both, to say, okay, I am willing to put 50% of the startup capital out of my own pocket, but I need the other 50%. And it does not necessarily have to be from a bank. You can look at financial need or aid from family or friends, or even maybe some investors that's willing to invest into the company, but they are going to want, their dividends back on this investment that they put into the company. From there on out, into the legalities. How do we register this company? Now, I've given two options in terms of the UAE. We have the setup for the free zone company. There's some information here that you need to take into consideration. Why do you go free zone? What is the benefits of going free zone? But also, what are some of the downsides of going free zone? Free zone companies, they don't have open access to the entire market in the UAE. Some companies actually have the right to say, I don't want to do business with you because you are in a free zone. So those are the type of things to think about. But primarily, there's a lot of benefit to going to free zone. I know there's been a couple of changes in the legislation here in the UAE. So in the past, free zone was 100% ownership. You do have that option now with mainland as well. But mainland, of course, has a bit of a higher expenditure when you go mainland. So look at your options between setting up the company free zone or setting up the company as an LLC company. Whether this is just in Dubai or in the UAE as a whole, look at those two different options. And if it's something that you're not entirely certain on where to start, there are a lot of organizations in the UAE that assist with this. Even some of the free zone companies have agents that you can ask to help you. Where do I go with the company? How do I register it? What's the paperwork that goes behind it? All of the legalities that has to go in for the licensing. Because a lot of the times, having a business license is the one thing. Having a trading license comes part of that. And if you are a educational institution like PCL, you don't just have your trade license, you also have to have a KHDA license. So there's additional things to think about, things to be added on based on the organization. Of course, if you go free zone, there's a couple of more advantages to that. And you might decide, maybe I don't want to register as an organization, maybe I want to register as a freelancer. So even then, that becomes something that is done within a free zone company or a free zone area. So then you register based on your trade that you have. So if you are in, let's say, photography, you would register in the media free zone. So those are the type of things to think about when it comes to the legalities of the organization. Where do I register it? How do I register it? And what do I need to take into consideration when it comes to this registration? We also spoke about the brand yesterday, where we talked about some of the elements that goes into the brand. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples today. I've primarily taken the examples from our own organization, just to give you an idea of. Sorry, I seem to have something that is speaking. Do we have a question? Sorry, team. I can't hear very clearly. Do we have a question? Okay, it seems that maybe somebody was just not on mute. Okay, so just to say again, so the examples that I'm using are from our own organization, but it's to start to give you an idea of what it is that I talk about when, for example, I talk about the brand concept. So it's not just your logo, it's the colors, it's the schemes, it's the planning that goes behind that. So within PCL, we have two primary brand concepts. We have our planets, which is a little bit more out there. It's a little bit more colorful. It creates a little bit more of a, I almost want to say, an inspirational idea. It sort of gets you to think about, the solar system and where you can go with things. It has different looks and feels for each one of the planets. Every planet is allocated to a different training course based on how the outcome of that course is. But this is our little bit more, I almost want to say, bold brand concept that we have. We also have a bit more of a romantic one. Cleaner lines, it's just the logo. It showcases the beautiful colorings of our logo. It's done on our royal blue background, which gives a bit more of a luxury feel to it. It almost looks, as if though you can touch it and it's going to be very soft. So it's a more softer, romantic feel. And depending on who we are engaging with, based on the client or the industry, or even the type of project, we would move between the two branding concepts. If it's something a little bit more like what we did during Expo, where it's a little bit more bold and out there, we go with our planetary themes. If it's for a client that's a little bit more towards, I almost want to say, the traditional side of what we do of leadership development training, we go for the softer, more luxurious, romantic look, because that just, different things speak to different people when it comes to your brand concept. The website, we mentioned this yesterday, where I said that one of the first things you need to do is, once you've decided on that name and you've gotten the name registered, and you make sure that you own that name, is to go and look at website options. Look at domain options, whether it is .com or .ae, and buy those domains out. Make sure that anything that could potentially be used that is similar enough to your name that people might confuse it, that you rather own that domain. You don't have to do anything with it. It's a small fee that you pay for it every month. And that's just, at least from my advice, it's not something that you have to do, but try and protect, what is yours in terms of your IP and your domain. So some of the examples on building a website, we spoke about this yesterday, where I said, you don't have to have an extremely extravagant, expensive website. Sites like Wix.com actually gives you templates that you can use, or you can build something from scratch. It's free to do it. It's easier to do it. There are some pricing options when you start to move, into bigger websites that have a lot of different tabs and contact areas, but it does not need to be extremely expensive. This is something that, if you have an idea in mind, and either yourself or you have a friend that understands, this creative design a little bit, it's something that you can do yourself. We tested it as a business implementation project that was done for a university here, where the students had to, as part of their business course, create their own company. And we actually gave them Wix to use to build their websites. So if this is something that I think, you can implement at a university or at a school level, and the kids can sort this out. And I know with today's generation, a lot of them know things that most of us don't know. And I can say this, even some of the younger generation have stuff on me that I will probably never be able to understand. But having something to go to that you can build and manage yourself, it sort of just, it brings down those overhead costs when it comes to starting up your own business. And there are a lot of options. There are a lot of themes that you can go into. So a lot of places that you can go and look at to see, how can I build a very easy, accessible, yet professional looking website. Moving into the flyers, the posts, and the campaigns, these are some of the areas where it can become challenging. When you deal with different customers and you deal with different audiences, a lot of the times, the way you build the campaign, the way you build the flyer, it might speak differently to different people. And this will fall as part of the marketing research when you start to look at how do you build your campaigns. A lot of things that I had not known before, I actually asked one of my marketing team yesterday, just to give me a little bit more insight when I started to amend some of the content for today. And they actually had to tell me that there are types of content that you build depending on the demographic that you want to reach, even types of content that you build depending on the gender that you want to reach. There are certain campaigns that, believe it or not, can be conceived as masculine and feminine. So when you start to build your campaigns, have your audience in mind. Try and plan a campaign for at least 4 or 5 weeks in advance. Have your imagery ready, know the message that you want to convey, look up some of the hashtags that you're going to use, look at how do you build this campaign based on the audience that you want to reach. And then also, how do you improve the performance of the campaign? So when we look at some of the stuff that we've done in the past, we've dealt with different types of campaigns. We had the Magnetar, which was built specifically for a client. It was built based around something that revolved around their own theme. We have been in collaboration with Lincoln before, where we had the boot camp. We've talked with the Business Council here in the UAE in terms of leading for she, and then Quantum of Disruption, which was a huge success in terms of the change and the end of what we call conventional leadership development. But if you look at the different concepts here and you look at the way they were built for a specific audience. They were built to interact with different genders. They were built to interact with different demographics. They were not built every single time exactly the same. Yes, we have the standard PCL theme in terms of what we do. We have the planets, or we have certain the atoms that goes with it. But every single campaign gets built for the very specific audience that we're dealing with, the product that we're dealing with, or at least just the engagement that we want behind it. So that is one of the things to take into consideration, is how do you use the information that you have in your customers to target them differently when it comes to your branding. We also spoke about the emails and the signatures yesterday. I used the example of, either using Outlook or Gmail, not just for the aspects of having a professional signature or having a professional email, but for some of the benefits that comes with it. If you use either Outlook or Gmail, you get free cloud space that you can use to start to build your archives in your repository. There's a lot of templates that comes both with Microsoft and with G Suite. There's Google Docs that allows you to build surveys. You can easily integrate, the marketing research that you have to do if you have to create forms that people need to fill in. All of those type of stuff comes with having one of these addresses. And you can link it to your own domain. So your email address does not have to be your name at gmail.com. It can be, once you've integrated it with your domain, it can be your name at yourbusiness.com, or however you want to do that, because it allows you that flexibility to build your entire, I almost want to say, infrastructure, digital infrastructure, using one of these platforms. Now, as I've mentioned yesterday, if this is one of those, if this is also provided by some of the other platforms, I wouldn't know. I just recommend the ones that I am used to working with and the ones that I actually do use on a day-to-day basis. One of the examples that we like to use a lot is because we have the G Suite Enterprise, we have access to a massive amount of storage space. We can build all of our forms on there. We can digitize everything that we want to send out to people. So no more sending a PDF or a Word document that somebody has to print out and fill in and scan back to you. You can easily get the information back. When you create a Google form for survey purposes, you automatically get everything captured back into your drive. It captures it as an Excel sheet, which makes it easier for you to download the content and the information again. So there are a lot of benefits to looking at maybe one of the, I almost want to say, larger platforms when it comes to creating your emails, because it's not just about the email. It's about creating that digital infrastructure that you're going to use to communicate with your clients, to save your own data, to make sure that you have backups of all your information. And then when it comes to the signatures, these are examples of signatures that can be done on the link that I've given you. These are all free. You don't have to pay, as I've mentioned before, you don't have to pay a lot of money in the beginning to get the professional look and feel that you want. So these are all examples of signatures that you can use. I think this site allows you to create up to 3 signatures for free. So even if you have business partners that will be working with you, or if you want to split, your personal email address from the email address that you have on your website, maybe you want to have an info@ email address with a separate signature from your own email address that you use, then you can split the signatures. You can create the same look and feel for both email accounts, just using the different names and the different information that you want to add to it. So these are a lot of options again, and I'm going to reiterate this again, especially from an entrepreneurial point, starting the business from scratch. You don't have to spend a lot of money in the beginning on the operational expenses of the organization when you start to set up what it is that you need just to get yourself started with. Obviously, as the business starts to grow, you can start to allocate budget to, if you want to at that point, more professional signatures, the type of signatures that are used for metadata. But that's a whole different discussion to have around, just a signature. But at the end of the day, your signature is that one thing that if people get an email from you, they scroll down to the signature. They'd like to see your name, your contact information. Having your contact information on an email is very important, because the email is something that people will keep. They will remember, oh yes, she sent me an email, so let me go back and find the contact information so that I can speak with her. And then also, as you can see, some of the ones here, they actually add some of their sales here. This particular signature gives the idea, this is a Airbnb host signature, and the pictures of the apartment are actually on the signature, and you can click on the signature to book your stay there. Same with this florist over here. You can actually click to order right from the signature. And then the bakery over here and the medical doctor over here. You can use your signature for more than just your name and your contact information. It can be used as a marketing tool as well, and as a sales tool. So when you start to look at that, think about what it is that you want to be able to communicate when sending an email without actually sending a sales email. Okay, at this point, I just quickly want to check in to see if I have any questions on what I've discussed so far. Anybody have any thoughts that they want to share, or maybe just quickly go back? I hopefully have not gone over anything too quickly. So if you can maybe, if I can have a couple of comments at this point, just to see if everybody is still with me, following me, and that I have not gone too quickly. Okay, well, Zaraya is still there and listening. Great. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the platform now, where we talk about the different platforms that you can use. Again, I'm using examples from my own experience, from my own organization. These are some of the only and best examples that I can use to sort of to be able to share all of this with you. So when we talk about social media, we spoke about this yesterday. We talked about the different pages that can be used to interact with customers. So I've given the 3 primary pages that we have in the organization here. There is our Facebook, our LinkedIn, and our Instagram. All of these pages are business pages that we did not have to pay for. They are all connected back to our website. They all have a point of sale on them. We can interact with our customers directly from here. People can contact us directly, or they can even register for one of their courses directly from one of our pages. You don't even have to go and scroll through the website to find it. The only thing that it does is it does require you that once you register for this, it redirects you back to the website where we have our payment gateways listed. So all of these pages, free to have set up. It was not that difficult to do. And the only challenge, at least from my perspective, but luckily, I do have at least one other resource that can manage this, is the management behind it. It's having somebody, whether it's going to be yourself or maybe you have somebody that is willing to do this part for you, is to sit and manage this. Somebody has to continuously post. Somebody has to look to see if there's been comments or feedback, to re-interact again. So once somebody comments on a post, for us to then have somebody respond back to that comment. So it's a bit of a task to keep your social media active. But if you do decide to go with the option of using a social media page as your platform for sale or your platform for connection, then you do need to make sure that you allocate the time to be able to do that. So it does require a little bit of constant management and adding back to it, but it is still, at least from my perspective, it is a very easy thing to use. All three of these pages are on my phone. If it comes down to it and I need to flip from the one to the other, I can do that. I can quickly go and respond. I can tag, I can like, or I can reshare, all from my phone. So for me, at least, those quick check-ins on a day-to-day basis, where the team asks me to go and react, is in my official capacity, then I do that. And it's that side is fairly easy, but I do know from a management side of it, posting on a regular basis, making sure you have your posts ready, which is why I mentioned earlier, go and plan it out 5 or 6 weeks in advance and know exactly that every Monday I'm going to post. Keep it consistent, to make it easier for yourself to manage it. So I've mentioned that our platforms all lead back to our website in terms of our payment gateways. So yesterday when we spoke about this, I briefly touched on payment gateways to say, you have to, if you're going to have an online payment feature, make sure that it is a secure feature. And there are a couple of questions to ask when it comes to payment gateways. Which one is the best to use in the UAE? I've actually gone and added a couple for you that you can look at. So these are some of the payment gateways in the UAE that are the easiest to use. They are the easiest to implement. They take the lowest fee. I think most of them take about between 2 to 5% in terms of the fee that they take. They don't have, you don't have to pay to have the subscription on this. So they take a fee on a monthly basis, based on the amount that is in the account. They take their share. So these are some of the easiest to implement. They can be linked to most sites. They work through most browser sites. It's easy to connect to them. People can fill in their information, they can pay, and they know that they are paying securely. So when you go and do this, do a little bit of a research behind it. Go and see what is needed to do this. I do know that there was one particular payment gateway that we sort of decided not to go with, because they actually required a minimum amount of sale to go through your account every month. Now, as a startup, that's not something that you can guarantee. So don't go with a payment gateway that requires a minimum amount, because you might end up finding yourself having a bit of a challenge, because if the amount of money does not go through the account, then they can't take their fees like they're supposed to, and that might become something of a stressful point for you. So rather look at some of the options that allows you to, interact with your customers, have people pay, transfer your money, and they take their share based off of what is in the account, as opposed to having a minimum balance all the time. So I did not add PayPal here, primarily just because these are some of the most easiest to use within the UAE. That does not mean that PayPal is not easy to use or is not a good option to go with. We just use it for various different reasons, primarily because we don't just interact with customers in the UAE, we also interact with customers internationally, and PayPal is sort of a international, almost going to say approved payment point for most countries outside of the UAE as well. So these are just some internally. And then I did mention yesterday that you can also check with the bank that you'll be banking with to see if they have their own payment gateway. I know Emirates NBD has their own payment gateway. I just unfortunately don't know the entire process that goes with it. We also spoke about banking yesterday. One of the things that we spoke about was to say that when you decide to go with your bank, you have to take into consideration, first and foremost, am I registering myself as a freelancer? So do I then still have the option to use my personal bank account for my business purposes? Or if I'm going as an organization, then you do have to register a bank for the organization. You can't use your personal bank account when it comes to paying for the company's side. That unfortunately, based from a lot of different perspectives, accounting, auditing, even as a small company, making sure that from day one, the necessary paperwork is there so that when you do reach a point where an audit is required, or you eventually get to a point which would be fantastic for most people, even though it does require that you then have to register for VAT. So when you start to make enough money that the UAE actually requires you to register and pay VAT, then the company is also required to be audited. And for that, everything needs to sit under a corporate bank account. So from day one, sort of decide, where are you going with the company? Is it going to be just yourself as a freelancer? So you're going to, deal with project to project and people are going to pay you into your own personal account? Or are you registering this under a free zone LLC or a mainland LLC? And how are you going to do the banking behind that? I have gone and looked at some of the most popular banks in the UAE, ones that offer some of the best business banking rates. I've also included a link in the previous or in the links email where we have rated the top 5 banks in the UAE in terms of business banking. There's some of the research, some of the primary questions that I mentioned yesterday. As an example, what is the minimum balance that has to remain in the bank account when it becomes a corporate bank? What are the fees that goes with it? How much do you end up paying for your business banking? What do you get with it? Is it just the bank account with a checkbook? Is there the option to apply for a credit card? As far as I know, debit cards are not something that you can apply with a business bank account, but there are different options on how to manage that. So I have also included some of the research that goes into the top 5 here in the UAE. But these are some of the banks across the UAE that gives you some of the better business banking experiences. And then the last one that we spoke about yesterday, which is a bit more of a personal side of the topic, which is the balancing act. So when we spoke about the balancing act yesterday, I shared a little bit from my own experience, from my own life. And I did ask you to also give me some of the areas that you might find as a challenge for yourself and what it is that you are worried about when it comes to balancing self. A lot of people in the industries talk about balancing work and family. Now, what I mentioned yesterday is that I refer to it as balancing self because we each have our own narrative and our own context. And it's balancing that self without the guilt. And that does not mean that you're going to manage it and you're never going to feel guilty about having to work late or not always being able to be there for every single thing that happens, but it's starting to create that balance. And one of the recommendations that I made was to create a routine for yourself. something that you know, you can stick to it. And then eventually, as it starts to become from routine to habit, you can start to see where do you go flexible with it. Now, I've added this particular image here, and this is just, it was something that I actually started with when I started to work for myself, was to see how do I deal with my day to day. Now, this does not necessarily mean that it's going to work for you as well. As I said before, we each have our own narrative. Now, I don't actually wake up at 8:30 a.m. in the mornings. I wish I could. Does not work that way. By 8:30 a.m., I have already spoken to at least both of my partners in the morning. But create a routine for yourself. Look at a fixed time to wake up in the mornings. How do you manage your mornings is very important. And it is really, it's one of those things of how you start your day is how you're going to manage your day, is how you're going to end your day. And if you start your day rushed and anxious because you have to get to some place, or you have to do something, or you have to meet a deadline, then sort of that mood sort of stays as the rest of your day. So plan it out for yourself, create a routine, make sure that you eat your lunch and your breakfast at the same time every day. Make sure that you have certain, I almost want to say, trigger points during the day that's part of your day-to-day business. If you have to set alarms for everything, if it becomes something that you still need help with getting into the habit of sticking to it, create your to-do list. I do my to-do lists the night before already, because a lot of the times, if I do my to-do list as I go through the day, I end up having 2 pages of work that I have to get to that I don't get to, and tomorrow I have to see what did I not do. So I do my to-do lists the night before already. I tick off what I have completed, and I also prioritize my to-do list. So I'll say that, let's say I have 6 or 7 points on my to-do list. 4 of them has to be done tomorrow. There's one that can wait until Thursday, but I have to get around to it in this week still. So I put it down there, and I make a little note for myself to say deadline Thursday. I also use primarily when I started with it, Monday.com, it was primarily for myself. So I created tasks and trackers with deadlines and times. And it sort of became a habit to check my Monday.com every single morning to say, okay, what did I get done with today? What do I still have to do? What are my deadlines? Because a lot of the times, once you start to structure what it is that you have to do, you sort of get to structure your mind as well. And you get to a point where it becomes almost, want to say, instinctive to say, okay, this is what my to-do list is. I'm waking up tomorrow morning that time. Plan your breakfast before the time. Do your lunch prep the previous evening already. Try and make your mornings as least stressful as you can. Now, as I said before, my narrative is not necessarily your narrative. You might have completely different things that happen in your life that you need to take care of in the mornings. But even with those type of things, see how you can put it into a structure, how you can put it into a routine, so that as you go along, you can get to a point where you can say, okay, this is what I have to do today. How am I going to do it? How am I planning it? And a lot of the times, if you can take, it doesn't take me very long, but if you can set aside, let's say, 15 or 20 minutes at night to plan your next day already, so that you know what it is that's coming, it becomes a little bit easier to manage it. So we had a couple of worries yesterday, and I do hope that with everything that we have talked about today, that I have at least touched on some of them. I do want to, when we move into the Q&A section, I do want to invite you to speak to me, share with me your thoughts, your ideas, or ask me questions if you have any concerns, even if it is just something that you want to voice because maybe one of the other ladies online actually has some advice on it. So as women, we kind of need to stick together, and not just as a supporting function for each other, but also as a platform to learn from. We should get to a point where we can say, okay, I might not get anything out of this, but at least I might be able to help somebody else with it. So I really do want to invite everyone, when we get to the Q&A section, speak to me, tell me what you're thinking, tell me what it is that you have in mind, and let's sort of just have a bit of an open discussion. So I do know that I'm probably going to move into the Q&A a little bit earlier. So I do want to invite everyone to please, speak to me on what it is, questions that you have, or share with one another. Let's create a platform where we can support one another and help where we can. Maybe just somebody has an answer to one of your queries or questions or concerns that I might not necessarily have. So let's chat, ladies. What are some of the questions and concerns that you have? You can type a message for me. You can raise your hand.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you see me?
Hannah, I actually cannot see you, but what I will do is I will quickly just click over to this last part here, just to say that here are all of the links. Then I'm going to stop share my screen, and then I should be able to see you.
Okay, sorry.
Not a problem. Okay, Hannah. So right now I can see your camera has not been switched on just yet. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you're welcome to speak to me. Hannah, are you there?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, Hannah. It seems to be that you've gone back onto mute.
Because of poor connection. Let me see.
So while I wait for Hannah to sort that out, Damon, I'm not sure if you are in the UAE, so I'm hoping that you are, because my response is going to be based on that. So some of the best career sites here in the UAE to look at is Indeed.ae. There are a lot of business opportunities on there, work opportunities. So it gives you a lot of areas where you can go and do some research on what is available in the market and how to get back into the workforce. If you're not looking to start your own thing, but you'd rather go back to having a day job just to start off with. So sites like Indeed.ae, there is Limoon as well. These are a couple of good sites to look at for that. And then, of course, if you have a LinkedIn profile and you can build a network there, you can connect with a lot of people that are like-minded, and maybe even find some career opportunities on LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn also, they recommend, based on your profile, they recommend companies that are looking for somebody with your skills. So there are a couple of options, at least when it comes to those. And then in terms of how to present the career break on the resume, depending on what the break was, I would actually, opt for, just to be honest, tell people you've either took a break because you became a mum, or you went to study, or whatever happened. There is a lot of people that tend to think that, okay, I've been out of the workforce for a year or two. How do I tell people what happened? Mostly, if you are honest, people will, they probably won't ask too many questions about it. I do know that I had a resume a while back where I also said, okay, so I see, you haven't been working for the past 2 years. I asked the person why. They gave me a very honest answer, and I really did not need anything more than that. And it's not because I was prying to find out about their life. I just, I was interested to see, so what have you been doing in the past 2 years? So depending on your answer, chances are people are not going to probe you too much on it. And if you're worried about how do you put it out in writing, just say, I took a break. Either it was for studies or family or any of those type of things. You just put it down, or you don't even have to put it down. Most people will see it if there is a gap between your previous and your last job, or your current and your last job, and they will not they will either ask you about it or they won't. I hope that helps. Okay, Hannah, are you managing?
I wanted to ask you one question.
Yes.
You hear me? Okay. I want to ask you the question in a financial projection or reporting of a business, how I can prepare the financial projection of my business.
Okay, so Anna, you broke up a little bit there, but if we're looking at, but I heard the part about the financial projection. So if we're looking at a financial projection, start off a little bit smaller. So look at, the capital that you are putting into the organization to start it with. If you've already started the company, some of the links that I've provided actually give you a couple of great financial templates that you can use. So your financial projection and forecast, you map it out about 6 months at a time. If you want to, you can map it out further, but you start off by listing what is the money that's already in the company. So whether that is capital in terms of equity or debt, remember when we spoke about that one earlier, is it capital that you have received as a grant, any type of recording in terms of what is already in the organization. Then the way I have it on one of my templates is I map out first and foremost the expenses. So what's going to go into the organization? Am I paying rent? Do I have to pay a DIWA bill? Is there an Ajari bill? All of those type of functional bills that need to be paid. What am I paying in terms of subscriptions that I have for Gmail or for one of our, like our Zoom, for example. So then I list all of my expenses so that I can calculate my expenses, and then I have the income listed. So income coming in from sales, from all aspects of income. And you list it to say in January, you are expecting to have income of X amount, you're expecting to have the following expenses. And then you say, okay, so what is the remaining bank balance based on that? And then how you do that is you make sure that the remaining bank balance that you have here at the bottom already gets added into February. Let's say we're starting on January. You have a column where you continue your calculations. So you have January, you have February, what is in the account, plus what is left over from the previous month. And then you list all of your income and expenses again. And in that sense, you start to create a projection to say that if I have X amount in the bank on January and I have all of these expenses based on what will be left over in the account in February, at the end of January, with what would have been in the account based on the content, not the content, the capital that I have, what is my bank balance then going to be for February? I hope that helps, but I have also added a couple of links in terms of templates for you to sort of go and look at to see, okay, how can I create these documentation? But try and not plan it out, years in advance. Take 6 months at a time, or if you have to, do a year, but try and keep it, at least in the beginning, keep it to 6 months at a time, because that will also tell you where are the months that you might have some challenges in terms of bank balance, or where do you have to push your sales a little bit harder. Nabira is asking about any online free courses sites that I can recommend. I can't think of any specific ones that are completely free. But I do know that other than some of the organizations that you have here in the UAE, if you're looking for online, specifically online, I know places, Coursera might have a couple of free ones that you can look at. Udemy has ones that are very, very affordable, especially on business management. So, and I know that specifically because we put my baby sister on some of those sites the other day. So there are some of those that you can look at. So I know Coursera would have, I know LinkedIn has their LinkedIn Learning. I'm not sure if everything on LinkedIn Learning is free, but there's a couple of areas that you can look at. And then Udemy has a couple of really good ones in terms of business management skills. They're fairly affordable. And there sometimes are a couple of ones here or there that you can access for free. Do we have any other questions or maybe some concerns that you want me to address?
Another question for you. What's a demo? Demo meaning I need to prepare a demo.
Okay, so depending on the product that you're dealing with, a demo is like a sample. So if you have, let's say you have a physical product, let's use something quite easy to understand. If you make homemade skincare products, then you need to have a sample of the product. So, maybe have small little samples that can be handed out. If it's on a website or an app or something more digital that you're doing, there needs to be a demo that people can test. So, when you sign up for certain things, they give you a trial. So it's a small demo for people to test, that they can sort of get an idea of, what the product is like and how does it work. So a demo is a sample of the product that you need to be able to give to the person to test.
Oh yeah, thank you. My business a product like spices preparation or spices made by locally. So I need that information is for beginning of my my business. He is entrepreneur. Not all business.
Okay,
just
so
like idea.
Yeah, well, if you need to have a demo, of the spices, then what I would recommend is, just have small little pouches, small little bags of the spices. If you have the specific combination of the spices, so let's say you have a particular dish. I'm trying to think now of a particular dish, but okay, let's use a curry dish. So there's very specific spices that goes into a very good curry dish. So maybe, make a small little combination of the packets together to say that if you're going to make a nice curry dish, these are the 3 or 4 different spices that you're using for this particular dish. So create little samples of the individual spices, but also combine them based on some of the recipes that you think, people might want to use them for. So combine, so make little samples of the spices themselves, but also to say, okay, if you were going to create the full product or the full dish, you would need the following 3 or 4 spices, and here is a little sample packet of all of them. Hamda is asking, what do I need to do when I want to start a small new business, especially?
Some
Yes, Anna.
sorry, my connection was poor. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Hannah, I can. I'm hearing. Could you not hear my answer?
Okay. What do you say before now?
So did you hear about creating the sample of the spices and having little packets of them, and maybe looking at if people are going to create a specific dish, to give them all of the small packets of the spices required for a very particular recipe?
Okay. My for example, picture or
So no, the actual spice. So if you, for example,
oh
Mhm.
um my actual spices are more combination of some spices cinnamon, red pepper, and
Sorry, Hannah, I am struggling to hear you a little bit. Team Supriya, is there maybe a possibility where we can get Hannah's information for her to reach out to me directly?
Right. So, Hannah, if you could leave me a private message here with your information, a private message. All right. We can get back to you. We've understood your question, and we can give you a detailed answer there.
Yes.
Hannah, are you able to?
okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that will be more helpful.
I think so, yes.
A private
Okay.
message, all right? Hannah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hamda,
Thank you.
do you mind if I ask you to unmute and just ask me your question directly, where you're saying, what do you need to start a small business, a small online business?
Yeah, anyone can, I think everyone can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, how am I, what do I need to do when I want to start a small business? When I want to get online business, like affiliate marketing, when I want to become just one of affiliate marketing or freelancers.
Okay. Well, one of the first things to look at when you do that is, if you're going to go freelancer, is to register yourself. If you want to, register it as a separate name, then you need to take into consideration that as a freelancer, you might also have to look at a trading license for the actual name of the organization. Or if you just want to use yourself as a freelancer and it's under your own name, is to then make sure that you have that registered, make sure you have the proper licensing for it, and then start by creating the online website. So we've touched on it a couple of points here today. So it may be a good thing when we share the recording and we share the slides, is to go and look at creating your website where people can reach you. You can start to create some of your own portfolio in terms of your marketing and what you do, and to promote that online using some of the social media channels, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or however you like to do that, and to sort of start to redirect the traffic of incoming customers to the website, where they can review the portfolio, see what it is that you do, and they can either, depending on how you want to structure the way people interact with you to get business, they can either book you online for what they want, or they can buy and pay for some of your products directly off of your website.
Okay, thank you. I get the point.
Okay. Nafisa, you are asking me about the child psychology and career coach, and you want to start your own center with that, that's at least just, you know, it can be a very big task to take on. But it's one of those things that if you really do feel like you have that difference that you can make in the world, and you can start to interact with people directly, you will have to look at obviously the particular licensing for this, especially from not just the career coaching. The career coaching you can do even as a freelancer, but when you start to move into the child psychologist side of everything, you have to make sure that you are registered with the right entities for that. You have to make sure the business license is in place, and that you have the right facilities to be able to deal with patients that you will be seeing. If it's something that you offer to do at home, then of course it becomes a different thing. Then basically what you need is your own office space that you can operate from. So when you start to move into that thing in terms of the child psychology, it is a little bit more of a bigger thing to look at. And unfortunately, I don't know what all of the regulations are in the UAE around starting a center like that. But you can start by maybe looking some of the open forum areas here in the UAE where they have the platforms for other professionals that speak to each other to see what is it that you can do with this. I do know that both on Facebook and LinkedIn, there are groups of coaches and psychologists in the UAE that help and support each other. So they might be better informed than me on where do you start to create and build your own center around this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the input. I would be looking forward for that. And yeah, if in case I have any doubts, is it like, you know, how can I get back to you? Maybe like if I would like to start with an online, you know, giving at least lectures on the information that I have or something like, you know, kind of.
I'm going to drop my email address in the direct message or in the message to everyone.
Right.
So you, yeah, there we go. So you're more than welcome to reach out to me on email directly. If there's maybe in our own network, I know some coaches that I can refer you to that might be able to help you on how do you start off your own center.
Exactly. That's great. Thank you so much. Thanks for the inputs and time.
You're most welcome. Okay. Supriya, I think I might have reached my time limit. So
yes, but Marina, I think there are a few questions in the chat box.
Yes, quite a few of them came through. So
yes.
I'm still. I mean, I'm still available if anybody wants to maybe just ask me the question directly, or how do you want to do that? Sorry, Supriya, I seem to have, oh, there we go. We're on your screen share. Okay.
Yeah. So, so Ms. Marina, would you like to answer these questions in the chat box, or there are 3 questions
yes,
that I can see?
Would you mind just indicating them for me, Supriya?
Yes, sure. I will do that. So Nabira is asking, can you please tell me something about buying shares in given companies and how it works?
That is unfortunately the one thing that I cannot give anybody advice on. I myself have somebody that knows a lot more about investment in shares than I do, that even advises me. So unfortunately, I'm really sorry, but that is not one of the things that I can advise on how to do it and how it works.
Right. The second question is by Nambela. How do you write a business plan for a project seeking financial investment?
Okay, so Nabella, if we look at the same template that I indicated earlier on, so Supriya, I hope you guys are sharing the slides and the links with everyone. That same template for writing the business plan for yourself is what you can use when you want to go and look for financing. So if you prepare the business plan upfront, how it's going to work, what goes into it, what is the challenge that you saw in the market, the solution that you have with it, what is your marketing research that goes into it, that very same business plan that you write for yourself, for the company, can then again be used to go and look for financial investment from partners or banks or any type of investor that you might want to speak to. Because the first thing that any investor is going to ask you is, what is your business plan? And then you have that ready and you can present it to them.
Right. And the last question is from Tilda. May I know if you are available? I'm just trying to read that out. May I know if you are available, coach, help, or mentor someone start an NGO? I think you've already answered this question,
Yes.
but if you would like to still.
More than welcome to reach out to me directly. I am available if you need some advice or guidance on anything when it comes to starting your own organization. So please do note down my my email address, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly. You are most welcome. Okay, I think now we
Right. So if there are no further questions from Hannah, I have left you a direct message. Please respond to that with your details. We will get back to you. So I think if we have no further questions, we can call it a day here. So thank you, Ms. Marina, once again for a wonderful session. Sure, there are many positive takeaways for everybody here today. Just a reminder to all our attendees here, please visit our website, www.lincoln-edu.ae. Please go through the range of courses that we offer. Choose one for yourself and register. You can get the contact details are available on the website to reach out to us. For our women learners here today or women prospects, additional waiver of AED 500 on your total course fees once you register. Please make sure you utilize that. It's a really good offer. You may, and for all attendees here, please check the chat box. The link for your certificate is available there. You may click on the link, follow directions, and claim your participation certificate. So thank you so much to everybody who has joined. Thank you so much, Ms. Marina, for a wonderful session. We come to the end of our webinar series on bringing women back to work. It has been a wonderful past few weeks, learned many things. We wish everybody here Eid Mubarak in advance. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the Eid holidays. Take care, everybody. From Lincoln University of Business and Management, goodbye and see you again soon, hopefully in the very near future.
Thank you much. Thank you, Cyprian.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
You too.
Bye.